Yo, what's going on, guys? Jared here. Today I have another deck profile for you, and this time it is going to be a Purrely deck profile, as you can see. I have this deck broken up into a little bit different order, and for my opinion, I do think that this is one of the strongest decks of the format. I know these past couple weeks of like regionals, and there's a YCS today as I'm recording this, so I guess we'll see. But this deck hasn't been performing at the level that I really thought it was going to. It seems like decks like Kashtira and Super Heavy have really taken a forefront for the format, and Purrely is just a little behind from the statistics standpoint of the last weekend regionals, at least, and a couple of the nationals. But I really do think that this is one of the strongest decks, but I think people are either playing it wrong, because this deck is a very hard deck to play, a lot of technical play, and there's a lot of ways that you have to be able to know to play through things and play around things, and it can do quite a lot. And yeah, so I want to get down to the reasons why I'm playing some of these ratios, because it might look a little off. I know the 15 hand trap lineup is usually the standard for this current format because of Super Heavy Samurai, but with how this deck kind of functions and operates, you actually, in my opinion, do not need that many hand traps, and I'm going to explain why. So the purpose of only playing, I have here 8 hand traps, which is Droll, Ghost Ogre, and Effect Veiler. So I have 8 hand traps in the main deck. Is that this deck can play through like boards very well, including Kashtira, including Super Heavy. All of those boards, the Purrely deck and the Purrely engine plays through very well, considering the fact that the only hard once per turns this deck has is Purrely and My Friend Purrely. Everything else is more than once per turn. If you get multiple copies of them, everything still works perfectly fine. You also get good synergies along with the level 1s of Droll Lockbird, Veiler, and Kurikara for the, another card that we play for breaking boards, being able to go into Exceed monsters like Starling and threatening Zeus constantly, because you can always spam monsters with how this deck functions. I think that these two specifically of Ogre and Droll are the highest impact and best cards of the current format. And you're probably wondering why Gamma isn't in the main deck. And it's because everyone's playing around Gamma now, which makes Gamma very bad. So the only reason Gamma's in the side deck now is because they realistically should be dimensional shiftering you when you activate a spell, and then they usually shifter you so the spell gets banished. But that's the only time where Gamma, I feel like, really comes in, and that might not even happen. Sometimes they will still hold shifter until after the monster's summon. So I really currently am not liking Gamma in the format, just because I feel like everyone's playing around it. Droll, on the other hand, decks are playing around it where they can, but a lot of them is like you hit Super Heavy, they force them into a Babushka line, and then for Kashtira, they'll like end on like a Fenrir or like a Shangri-La or something like that. And then you have options to play around that with other cards I have in the deck. But yeah, so I really don't think that you need more than like 9 hand traps in this deck, just because I think how good it is. You can, feel free, obviously you can. It's nice to draw in them with Sleepy, but I just don't think it's needed. So yeah, these are, I think, are the two best. For the Effect Veilers, I really wanted to play Imperms, but for the level 1 synergy, I decided to stick with Veiler, but this could definitely be Imperm, Mourner, other stuff like that. It's only Veiler for that synergy. And yeah, so like, it just things to remember. The only downside about these 8 specifically is that they lose to Shifter. Like, if Shifter resolves, none of these hand traps work, which sucks. But that's just something to keep in mind. And when you're deck building in general, like stuff like that is important to keep in mind, where you know that Kashtira is going to be maining Shifter, so you like your hand trap choices might change. Maybe you should be playing Ash, Mourner's Nibs instead of something like this. Just things to think about when you're deck building for stuff like this. Moving on to the not hand trap, not Purrely cards. I played 2 copies of Brow. I saw a lot of lists. I think Pack started this trend of playing 1 Beast, 1 Brow, and I know what he said in the profile was to chain block the Purrely monster that you summon off the spell when you discard it off of the off a Purrely spell. So you go, use the Purrely spell, discard the beast, summon out a Purrely, and then you can go chain link 1 Purrely, chain link 2 the beast in the graveyard. And the more I thought about it, the less I liked it, because people aren't hand trapping your Purrelys, and if they are, it's not that you're chain blocking the wrong ones. I feel like, because if they're gonna Ash Blossom you, I feel like no one's Ash Blossoming the summon effect of Purrely. They're going to Ash Blossom the search effect of My Friend Purrely. No one's going to Ash Blossom the first effect of Purrely, because it's the first. It's not once per turn. You're not really getting good value out of that Ash Blossom anyway. Yeah, and then like if anything, people were most likely to be ashing the spells themselves too, just because they trade 1 for 1. It kind of puts you on and better have another one. So the play around with chain blocking in that scenario doesn't make sense in my head. And yeah, you can play around things like Ghost Ogre, But again, people aren't going to Ghost Ogre the first effect of Purrely or Purrely, both the Purrely monsters. They're not Ghost Ogring that. They're going to Ghost Ogre the second effect of this so they can't use it again later. And then they're going to Ghost Ogre the My Friend Purrely, or maybe the second effect of Purrely to stop you from exceeding. No one's Ghost Ogring the first effect of these. So that's just my personal opinion on that take. It might be a little hot take, but I would rather be able to maybe normal summon this and maybe go for a different kind of line. I don't know, just something that's a little bit more alive. Maybe in a slower game state, you can normal summon it. But I don't know, it's just something about it. It didn't make sense in my brain, so I cut the beast and I want to put a second brow in. Yeah, that's just my personal opinion on that. And then for the rest of it, we have 2 copies of Talents, 3 Book of Moon, and 3 Kurikara. These are stuff I would consider more like board breaker cards. Kurikara is level 1, so it has good synergy with the deck, being able to take cards, being able to go into things like Starling and the Zeus, so you have a lot of good synergy there. And like I said, this deck plays through stuff very well. And being able to go Kurikara and then keep playing after is huge. So you can do a lot with this card, and it works very, very well. In the worst case, if it's for a bad matchup, you decided that anyway. Book of Moon. I think Book of Moon's crazy this format right now, and it's very underestimated. The more the format seems to be developing, the more Book of Moon seems to find its way back into decks. Kashtira isn't playing Forbidden Lance, so Book of Moon has been super impactful. There's been a little increase of Nibiru play, so Kashtira has been kind of going more back to the Arise Heart line, but then they're not also playing the lands to protect the Arise Heart, which was the whole purpose of it in the first place in my eyes. So you can just Book of Moon the Arise Heart and play through it anyway. And then obviously super heavy, you can book down the Soul Piercer, and that really, really hurts them. And then Triple Tactics Talent's really good because if you get hand trap, you can do it. But breaking boards also, being able to, like, no matter what, this is gonna, like, going through a board, this will be alive in my opinion, and you will be able to like either use the effect to take or get 2 more cards. And for Purrely, getting 2 more cards is huge because of, you know, just how these cards work with their function of discarding. So you get a lot of good value out of these cards, I feel like, for breaking boards, and they're all good in almost every matchup, I would say. And you can easily bait out like something like a Rise Heart with the Purrely cards, and then being able to take the Arise Heart and then make a Zeus over it. So yeah, you have a lot of good, you know, like strategies and synergies of ways to play around and through things. Next up, the actual Purrely engine. This is a pretty standard Purrely engine that I've seen. 3 of each monster, and then 3 My Friend Purrely, 3 of each quick play spell, and the 1 trap. That's very, very standard. I don't feel like I don't have to explain this. I'm not playing the field spell. It just doesn't do anything. It's actually just a brick. It's only makes your bad hands worse. And it, like, your good hands were already good anyway, and it wasn't adding any value to that, if that makes sense. You never want to search it off per Lily. I would literally rather just get follow up with another My Friend Purrely or something like that. If you already have this, you just get the trap. So it doesn't really make sense to play it, in my opinion. Yeah, the only thing that I was going to say about the Purrely cards is, like, you have to keep track of, like, their first effects and which ones you can use without a monster on the field and with a monster on the field. And that also goes back to the Brow, too, right? Like, if you need to, you can be able to normal summon Brow and then use Happy to be able to get your engine going. Just keep stuff like that, keep in mind. But yeah, just remember all the first effects and don't accidentally, like, cheat your opponent, because it's very important to know how these cards function. You know, like I said, this one needs something on the field. Delicious needs some monster on the field. These 2 don't need anything on the field, so just keep that in mind. Moving on to the side deck, 3 copies of Gamma and Driver. Again, this is really just for Shifter. I feel like it's the only thing that I'm scared of with this deck, and I really want to be able to punish it. And you have to literally hope that they Shifter on the chain of the spell. And most people, I feel like, aren't even going to do that. They'll just let you get to that, and then you Shifter after, and you kind of just are stuck with Plump, and then you have to hope you can get to Noir, and even that's like, you know what I mean? So this might not even stay in here, but test it out, see if people are playing into it where you are. But that's just, you know, it's just my personal opinion. Maybe Nibiru might be better in the slot, something to hard push, but yeah, just test other stuff out too. But that's just my personal opinion on Gamma right now. 3 Vanity's Fiend. So this is for super heavy, right? If you go first against super heavy and you summon Vanity's Fiend on your opponent, that deck does not have a lot of outs. It is literally specifically Archfiend-centric. With how the deck is now playing the 4 package with the plant level 1 pendulum, with Stage to 4 in that, they can't use that effect if Vanity's Fiend's on the field. So, like, their out to the Performer Pal is a separate out from Vanity's Fiend. And if people are playing Stage to 4, Vanity's Fiend gets better. Does that make sense? So, like, if people are cutting Archfiend-centric, then Vanity's Fiend gets crazy, and it's like an auto win against that deck. Also, something to keep in mind is if you have Vanity's Fiend plus Happy Memory, if they do play Archfiend-centric, you can, you know, make sure you set the Happy Memory, and then they'll go, you know, summon normal Archfiend-centric, use the effect, try to pop Vanity's Fiend. chain Happy Memory, they'll probably concede because the odds of them drawing 2 of them is unlikely. But yeah, if you have My Friend Purrely and Happy Memory, and then you could just keep getting more Happy Memories, like, game's over. They're cooked because they're not going to be, they can't kaiju over it. They can't, like I said, they can't use Sage the Floor. Even Wagon plus the Soul Claw is just a little too small to beat over it. So unless they're playing like another copy of what's it called? There's another Super Heavy that boosts, I believe, and that's the only way, and that's just like awful. So yeah, it makes it really bad. Like, this card's like an auto win versus Super Heavy pretty much. Call by the Grave, again, shifter, it's just a shifter card, but, going first, any hand trap just shuts them out completely. Some matchups, it's, like, decent against 2. Call biting a Soul Piercer is, like, really big, so, just keep that in mind. Cosmic Cyclones and Harpy's Feather Duster. Yeah, back row's scary. I feel like the only way, like, you beat normal decks completely fine with this deck. Like, this can play through everything, I feel like, in some kind of capacity. So if you're playing properly, of course, if you're playing properly and you know how to play around things and try to play through them, I feel like the deck itself can play through most, if not all, things. So the only thing you lose to is like cheese cards, things like there can only be one, skill drain, stuff like that. So that's where the Cosmics and the Harpies come in, just to be able to stop those cheese losses. You don't want to lose that type of stuff, like Labyrinth decks that could be playing that. So when you put these in, these are really just for that. You also can put this in against maybe Kashtira for Birth, but like, it's not like amazing. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Lastly, 3 Exceed Encore. Something that's also good against Kashtira, but also for the mirror. This card's like so high impact, like being able to, yes, it'll trigger some of their cards and they'll be able to like get accrue advantage again, but you also are just able to probably, 1, kill them. You have to remember getting Purrely cards back from My Friend Purrely doesn't actually do anything if they're dead. So if you're just playing through and just killing them, you're completely fine, especially with something like Happiness. Or you're making your own Noir, which is 1,000,000 materials, or your own Zeus with 1,000,000 materials. So like Exceed Encore outing that stuff is very good. Also, a 1 card out to Arise Heart is also very, very nice. Or Shangri-La, anything like that, right? Like being able to like just stop that stuff. So yeah, I've been liking Encore right now. There are other options that could also go in the slot. Some people might like Kaiju, Santa Claus. So many options. This format is a mess of stuff, but I'm just saying what I think has been working very well for me personally in the testing I've done for all these decks. Moving on. Extra deck, we're going to have 2 copies of Zeus and 1 Downard. I really feel like Zeus, like, I like this deck, but the actual gameplay of it always leads into this narrow tunnel, like a bottle of Zeus and Noir. And that's it. That's all this deck does. I feel like it doesn't do anything else. Everything else feels subpar, and it's just bad plays, I feel like. And it's so frustrating, because I want this deck to be good. I wish the smaller ones were better. Like, obviously, they're okay, right? Like, Beauty's fine. Being able to negate stuff's fine. Being able to bounce back row is fine. And being able to steal cards out of the graveyard and banishing stuff's fine. That's all good. It's fine. But they're not high-impact cards. That's what Noir is for. That's the high-impact card. And it's annoying that every time I play it, it's just like, we just always are going for this one line, and it just gets very like repetitive and boring after a while, I guess. I'm kind of complaining about just the gameplay of how it plays, I guess. But yeah, I just feel like it's always the same thing over and over again, and just a little boring in my taste. But yeah, 1 copy of Fucho, I guess I'll call it. Yeah, he's fine. He's like a rank 1. You can put it next to Noir if you have extra bodies, and he can stall you out, so you guarantee you don't die. It's also very good. If you get something like Shifted, you can just drop this in defense and then just stall out for a turn. So you don't have to worry about Shifter. Starling, or Nightingale, sorry, I always call it Starling. Nightingale. The Starling's the other one. Nightingale makes Zeus attack directly, very good. This is also good if your opponent has a defense position monster, can slam into it, it's unaffected, so it also makes Zeus. Yeah, like they're just Zeus cards. Princess Sprite, your deck has a lot of spell and traps. You're at like 21, 22 spell and traps, I believe, so you have like a 50-50 shot, but if you have like, you have to make Princess Sprite with like 2 of these, and if you have 2 of these already, you're cutting out 2 monsters, and then you also will most likely have another one under like a plump. So you have 3 monsters out of the deck, not including any other, hand traps that you might have drawn already, stuff like that. So the odds of this go up very slightly, but it's, you know what I mean? You use up extra bodies, and this gets the most value out of those bodies, I suppose. And then the 1 copy of the Agent's Moon. This is literally just to out, like, again, cheese cards. I really do want to play something like Donner, too. Like, just something else also, but this is just the best at what it does, I suppose. So, like, just because it tributes for cost. It's the only reason why. It's 2 fairies, and it could play under, like, Rivalry of the Warlords, Skill Drain, stuff like that. But you have to dedicate a lot of cards into it. But, yeah, it's just the best at what it does. So maybe if you want a normal summon Brow, maybe something like Donner might be better here, or just by both, like extra bodies are always okay to go into stuff. So yeah, that's the deck profile. I really like this deck in the format of like it being competitively good, but like I said, the gameplay just gets a little tunnel bottlenecked to an extent. But again, this deck is not easy to play. Like you really need to know interactions of what they have, like memorizing everything your opponent has, how to play around it, what your cards need to do, which most of the time playing into boards is Zeus, but regardless, that's like you need to remember these things, and also plumps to like affect to banish stuff. Like all of that stuff really comes up. And threatening beauty, don't forget pretty memories, other effect. Like these are super important things that really need to happen. Playing around Ghost Ogre with happy memory, a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff, and it's really, really good to keep in mind. It's really competitive. It's very, very strong. And I think this deck's going to keep evolving and evolving and evolving, much like Sky Striker, as the formats go on, if it goes untouched, and it will always be in some way, shape, or form playable if it's not touched. So, yeah, that's just my opinion on the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any suggestions, put them in the comments down below. Finally, a reminder to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.